And this is actually a great thing that acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine is getting incorporated slowly, but it's happening, that it's getting incorporated into modern obstetric care. And that's actually what I was in China for, only just last month. And I was speaking at a modern maternity systems conference, and it is very much rolling out a program. We're teaching a program to the hospitals there of incorporating, traditional Chinese medicine and homeopathy.
Hi, this is Bruce Lipton, and you're listening to Planet FM.
Kia ora, greetings, and welcome to Planet FM 104.6. I'm Tim Lynch, and I trust that you are doing well. I invite you to stay with me over the next hour as we discuss and find ways to take care of our unique and magnificent green planet Earth. In the studio this morning, I have Kathy Fray of CathyFray.com. And it's nearly 10 years ago since I interviewed her, and she's the creator of Motherwise Resources. And it's about pregnancy, birth, babies, motherhood, and parenting. So welcome, kia ora. Thank you for wanting to come in 10 years later.
I know, thank you for inviting me, and we've kind of kept in contact over the time a bit, and it's great to be here.
Excellent. Yes, it's 10 years since all those babies came, and we've got another 750 million babies have been born onto our planet since I last spoke with you.
Wow. And
bringing babies into the world.
And I've probably done about 500 of them myself.
As a midwife.
Yeah. So that's kind of part of why we haven't really been able to sort of stay in touch so much again as well, is because I've been 24/7 on call for a lot of the last decade. So it was challenging to commit to be any place at any time.
Wow, yes. Well, the greatest entrance is coming into this world.
Yeah.
And then we trust having a life where play, joy, connection, family, community, and then at the end of your life being fulfilled because you've made a greater connection to the world and beyond. And I'm just trusting that this can continue, that mums in particular have wonderful births, which is a great joy to the world.
I think that it's when women are pregnant with their first baby, they just sort of have this hope, of almost an assumed hope sometimes, that it's not going to be them that has that horrific birth that's all about emergencies and trauma and drama. But unfortunately, 50% of our births in New Zealand for first-time mums are dramatic and traumatic. And when we add up the Caesar rate and the instrumental delivery rate, that's what's happening. So we were just kind of talking about this before we went to air, but there unfortunately, I do see it a lot, that the women are not fully engaged in their pregnancy. They think they are, but they're not fully engaged in getting as much information as they can beforehand, kind of get to those standard routine antenatal classes, but they expect non-routine outcomes. And I personally had a caseload that was generally sort of higher demographic, I guess economically. I was a North Shore midwife, and 50% of my clients had pre-existing medical conditions. The average age of them with their first baby was in their early 30s. So I had a demographic of women who should really, statistically, be having probably 55, even 60% non-normal spontaneous birth. Yet they had an 85% vaginal birth rate. And that was just because I'd worked so hard to get them engaged in understanding what was ahead of them with that birth. And when a woman has a really fantastic, beautiful, lovely, wonderful birth, everything else goes better. You know, the breastfeeding's better, the baby's better, the baby's thriving, there's virtually no postnatal depression, the husband's or the partner's wrapped as well. You know, everything just works better. And if we can get those women to have just empowering, normal births, then it just flows. Everything flows on. I actually call it the cascade of normalcy, because there's the term in obstetrics, or particularly in midwifery, calling the cascade of intervention, that when you do one thing in a labour, it leads to the next, And so I like to call it the cascade of normalcy.
So turning it all around.
Yeah.
Yes, men are sort of outside this whole loop, and only until recently, in the last, say, 40 or 50 years, that men have slowly come into the circle.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And that's awesome to see the guys there. And I mean, they were there at the conception, so I think it's good that they're there at the birth.
Yes.
And they often just appreciate everything more. And I mean, I've seen some pretty hard, tough men cry out of joy.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. There are probably some dudes that have not cried since they were 3 years old. And that's stunning to see. The limitation, I guess, with it is that quite clearly a male partner has never given birth. And so for them to be the sole reliant person as that birth support person, that sometimes has its own challenges, depending on their personality as a guy. You know, I've seen some men who are absolutely amazing birth support people, and then I've seen some who are pretty pathetic. I'm sorry to...
Yeah, I hear you very much so, yes. So what's the first stage when I know there are some people who are wanting to have children and they'll practice for a long time to actually have that pregnancy? Can you just take us through a whole process, Kathy, because I want you to be able to get some good, clear messages for all prospective mums and dads so that they can do the best thing for their newborn on the way.
Okay, well, probably I think one of the first primary questions that a mum who's pregnant with her first baby, if I say to you, what's your number one priority? And oftentimes they'll say, I just want a healthy, normal baby. Okay, so what's your number one priority? And often this is where they're just not really, as I say, completely engaging into it. So to me, the answer is the number one priority is to give that baby the safest, kindest, most gentlest birth. Okay. All right. Then I'll say, okay, yes, that's my priority. Okay. And also, yes, that's my priority. And by the way, I'm planning to work up until 38 weeks. And how do I get the epidural again?
Oh, boy.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, so it's not your number one priority. Your number one priority sounds like it's work. And then it's making sure that you have this most painless labour that you can. Yeah, so sometimes when we sort of really get down to it, what is that number one priority? And when you get the women who say, Kathy, my number one priority is giving my baby the safest, kindest, most gentlest arrival into this world, and I really don't want it to be traumatic, and I really don't want it to be dramatic. How do I do that? The yay. It's like, for me, it's like a hallelujah moment. Yay, they actually want to, now they know they don't know. So let's teach them how to do that. Whereas I certainly have seen a lot of mums to be where they're not quite there. And sometimes the partners are not helping, where they might say things like, look, thousands, billions, millions, trillions of women have done this since, you thought, how hard can it be? It's only a baby, and you're like...
Bloke talk.
Yeah. And then generally around about day 22, after that baby's born, and we've got a lot of stuff hitting the fan at that point, and often that's when they suddenly realise properly that they actually didn't know enough. And by that stage, there's so many pitfalls that we could have avoided. I guess I'd have to say, if you're going to access for yourself routine antenatal education, expect routine results.
What you put in is what you get out.
Yep, totally, absolutely, fundamentally when it comes to childbirth. And if you can just get that The other thing that the benefit that women don't always grasp when they're fully pregnant with that first baby is that when they do go out and get really proactive on getting all the information that they can, and so I'm talking about reading some great books, attending their hypnobirthing classes, getting to antenatal classes, getting my free downloads, getting one-on-one with me a bit, perhaps, like just getting really, really proactive. The side benefit that they don't actually realise at the time is that if their labour gets complicated and their birth becomes an instrumental or a surgical delivery, I mean, it does happen. You can do everything on the planet that is going to be the right thing, and it still can go a little bit pear-shaped sometimes. But the difference is they can put their hand on their heart and go, I know I did everything I could possibly do to give that baby the safest, most gentlest arrival. I know I did it. And then you can kind of feel like, well, the rest was up to the universe. It was what it was. It was to be what it was to be. Whereas what I have certainly had a lot of over the years is mums coming to me for their second baby because they just feel so bad about how they could have done it better with their first, and how horrific the whole thing ended up, and all the complexities that one problem led to the next problem, led to the next problem, and they're just, I'm not doing that again. I know I need to learn this stuff. Please help me. Please teach me.
Yes, well, education, being sensitive, and it's the greatest event for every human being. So let's get really into it.
Yeah, totally. And it's like as we get older, as our children get older, we can end up parents putting more effort into their first birthday and their fifth birthday and their school ball and their 21st. More thought, more planning, more effort goes into all of those than they did actually into their birthday.
Yeah. Oh boy. At present, with your newsletter, you're helping so many people by just, it's networked out to a lot of people.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that. I get really humbled sometimes with the amount of feedback that I get from mums to be, from mothers, from other health professionals. Yeah, we work hard at kathyfray.com to put out really good content. We do. We put a lot of effort into that.
Well, for researching the interview, I mean, fortunately I had a good number of your newsletters, and I was able to go and cut and paste all my questionnaire here for you. And there's a lot of information that's really, really important. And I know that conscious conception is a very important, is when two loving couples come together with the intent of bringing another being into this world. And then the whole process of eating the right foods, of breathing deeply, of relaxing, of taking in the best of water, all these things just around diet alone. I mean, can you just drop anything into this conversation that you want in relationship to that? Because all I want is listeners to just hear the story that you wish to relate to, Kathy, on bringing a baby into this world.
I think that one of the things I would have to say is there's a big bugbear that I'd love to get the message across, is how long is okay for the mother to be working while she's still pregnant with that first baby particularly. And please, part-time work from 28 weeks, not working from 32. That is my gold standard. And those mums that do that have better, healthier pregnancies, and they have just subsequently less reason for obstetrics to intervene into the labour because they can go to spontaneous labour. So that's a big, big thing. And often with the very first time that I'm speaking with a woman who's newly just worked out that she's pregnant, I'll say to her, so have you thought about when you're going to be stopping work? And she'll say, oh, yeah, I thought about a month before I'm due. And I'd say, okay, and when are you due again? And she'll give me the date. I go, no, that's not your due date. That is your estimated date of delivery or your 40-week gestation day. You're due to give birth to this baby anywhere from 37 weeks onwards. So if you're planning to work up until 36 weeks, that means that you're going to be stopping work 1 week before you're due to give birth. And so that's always a bit of a revelation. I think we get really fixated on these actual dates, and women will say crazy nutty things afterwards where it'll be like, oh, the baby was 3 days early. No, it's not. It's not like a turkey timer that pings and this baby suddenly comes out. So I would say, firstly, that really, really know that the longer that you're working full-time in this pregnancy, and I don't care what it is, your job it is, and how much you just sit around, and it just doesn't matter. If you're working, you're going to be adding in stress factors to this pregnancy. And pregnancy itself, physiologically, is a stress test. Okay? So everything in your body is working at a level that it's not used to doing. Your cardiac output alone by the time you're 28 weeks is 1.5 times a non-pregnant you. So everything's under stress already physically. So everything that you can do, and you can't do anything about that, right? Your body is going to have a cardiac output of 1.5 times a non-pregnant you. You've got 1.5 times the amount of blood circulating in your body. You can't reduce that. You can't take that out of your heart's roll, right? So, but what you can do is not be working full-time. Every single premature baby I've ever had has been a woman working full-time or woman shifting house.
Yes.
At 36 weeks, don't do that. 34 weeks, 35 weeks. I've had several women go into labour while they're shifting house, who obviously reassured me that they wouldn't be doing much and they'll be taking it easy and everybody will be lifting the boxes, but they still go into labour. So yeah, every single premature birth I've ever had has been somebody shifting house or still working. Every single preeclamptic woman with toxemia, I've been woman working. Like, it's just bad. So once you sort of deal with the work, I guess the next thing is, as you say, the diet. That gets pretty complicated for the women themselves, understanding what's good and bad and everything else. Obviously, organic fruit and veg is a really good idea, but that's just a good idea anyway. Free range with our meat would be great. And then really, I suppose if we make things the least complicated they can be, I would say organic fruit and veg because of the toxicity of non-organic. Free range, your protein. And then the other big thing would be, your main thing you're trying to do is avoid food poisoning. That's it. Like, so often people will read, oh, you can't eat brie cheese and you can't have sushi and you can't. No, what it is you want to avoid everything that you can possibly avoid that could lead to food poisoning. That's it. That's what it's all about when you see those guides. So, say for example, is it okay to? This is probably not your listeners. But is it okay? Is it okay to, make a beautiful homemade mince pie? Yeah, that's fine. Is it okay to buy a pie at the dairy? No. Is it okay to have some shellfish that you've bought from the supermarket? No, not a good idea. Is it okay to be out on the boat and have a scallop that you just, harvested 10 minutes ago? Yeah, that's fine as long as it's cooked all the way through. Or is it fine to have vegetarian sushi? Yeah, go for it. Is it fine to have raw salmon sushi? No. Does that kind of make sense? It's all about food poisoning, really. And then it's, I guess, about just what the rest of it is sort of down to your personal philosophies of food.
Thank you very much. Yeah, well, I don't want to get into some people imbibe of a wine or something like that, and it's a difficult one, and so I'll steer away.
No, I can give a pretty blank answer on that one. When you're pregnant, because your bloodstream is connected with the baby, it has its own bloodstream, but that's a whole bit of a complicated stuff. But there's stuff that crosses the bloodstream. So I would say, as in pregnancy, is you should never, ever consume anything that has a mind-altering factor to it. right? So that means no cannabis, no alcohol, not even antihistamine medication that says on it you should not drive or operate machinery. So anything that has a brain-altering factor to it is a no-go in pregnancy. However, once you've had the baby and it is absolutely possible to have an alcoholic drink and be a lactating mother. But the thing is that you, what we call pump and dump that stuff and make sure you've got some other in the fridge ready to, or in the freezer ready to feed baby as a replacement. But if you want to go to a big party and enjoy yourself after having your baby, that's absolutely fine. We just have to do it strategically.
Very good. Now, mother's milk. I think this is really, really very, very powerful. I'll add a little story to it a little later on, but you tell us about the magnificence of mother's milk.
Well, the one thing that any scientist of the human body will confirm is that the more we study, the more we realise we don't know. And the more that we study breast milk as a particular topic, the more that we realise, oh my God, it's like beyond phenomenal. And the more we study it, the more phenomenal that we, it's so absolutely that is 100% the best thing that for the baby. Yeah, no brainer. There's no argument. It is. We know that. It's black and white. The more we study it, the more black and white it becomes. So the question really, what happens in a situation where there's some difficulties with that baby being exclusively breastfed? So breastfeeding, by the way, doesn't have to be, well, it's more exclusively breast milk feeding, because obviously babies can use a bottle to be fed with expressed breast milk, particularly when mums are returning to work. Okay, so what we're talking about really is breast milk feeding, and ideally a baby should be exclusively breast milk fed for the first 6 months, and they don't need anything else. That's it. So long as they're getting enough breast milk, but there is nothing else that needs to be added to their diet at all. And the thing with women and breastfeeding, we don't understand how this happens, but if you've got a mother who's tandem feeding, so she's got a newborn baby on her left breast and her 2-year-old on her right breast, her left breast will make colostrum at the same time that her right breast makes full milk. Now, how does that happen, right? How on earth? We don't know. We don't know how it happens, but that's what happens. So it's phenomenal. So with these mums that have challenges with breastfeeding, I personally have a very high success rate with exclusively breastfed clients. And again, it's appreciating that what happens at the birth makes a big difference for not just the mother, but for the baby as well, with regards to getting that breastfeeding going really well. But you give a baby a beautiful, normal, unassisted delivery, and they latch way better right from, you get this amazing 10-minute-old baby that literally will kind of slither up its mum's tummy and latch itself perfectly to that nipple. And it's already getting this little blueprint going on in its mind as to how to breastfeed. Like, it's born with that knowledge. But you get a baby whose mum's had 12 hours of oxytocin-induced labour or augmented labour, and then it's had an hour or two of unassisted descent, and then 3 hours of active pushing, and in the end it's been yanked out by forceps or sucked out by a ventouse or cut out by a Caesar, and it's screaming blue murder as it's got these great big kibble hematomas on its head of bruising and forcep marks on its head. I mean, it's just got the most whacking headache ever. It has to have, logically. So how is that baby going to breastfeed as well as that baby that just had this beautiful natural pushing and delivery and pushing and birth? It's just, it doesn't happen. And we get these babies that They just struggle from the get-go, and they can get there in the end. They can become wonderful breastfeeders, but boy, it can be hard work for the mum. And she's got to work really, really committed. I always say to tell the mums that they need to allow, in their headspace, a month for breastfeeding to properly establish. It really does take a month. And when you see women that are out in a cafe discreetly just lift their top and put their baby on, and it's all so beautiful, and they still yet yakking away to their girlfriend at the time, that is never a newborn.
I see.
That's always a baby that's beyond about 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And so it's, I can't remember quite where we were at on that question. The breast milk, yes. So formula, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so formula. So we know breast milk is the best thing. So the best thing you can do is give that baby the best birth they can, so they can get their best latch from the get-go, and have you more relaxed and you recovering from a lovely normal birth rather than you recovering from a valve ventouse, valve forceps, episiotomy, and an emergency crash section, and major abdominal surgery. I know that we have a lot of sections, but they're never routine. They're always major abdominal surgery, and should always have that respect that they are so. And with every caesarean, we've got a 1 in 10, that's 10% chance of a clinically significant after effect for the mother or the baby of an adverse reaction of some kind, baby in skiboo, mother postnatal infection, whatever it is. 1 in 10, it's pretty high, right? If you have any surgery where the surgeon says to you, you're going to have a 10% chance of a complication post-surgery, that's pretty up there. My husband just recently had some surgery, actually, and the surgeon said he had a 1% chance of a complication. So for me, listening to that, coming from knowing that women have a 10% chance for them or their baby having a complication, I was like, 1%? Oh, that's really good.
Yes. Yeah. I feel lucky.
Yeah, okay. Better than my clients. So the thing with formula is that, yes, it is very, very, very technically advanced now. And I giggle because we have my husband's Plunkett book, and in it is the formula, because the word formula comes from the fact that Plunkett used to give you, the woman, the secret recipe, which nobody knew what it was. But it was literally just cow's milk and barley type things. So certainly our formula these days is technologically way more advanced than our generation was raised on, but it's still not breast milk.
No colostrum?
Colostrum is, colostrum's so incredibly special. It's very high in sugar, so lactose, milk sugar, so it keeps the baby's blood sugar at a lovely, healthy level, but it's low in fat intentionally because we want it to be an incredibly light and easily digestible drink. It's very watery, basically. And that's because all mammals have colostrum in the first few days. It doesn't matter if you're a mouse or a goat or a whale, you're going to have colostrum. And that's because we're born with our intestines sterile. And we need a few days for our intestines to grow the healthy bacteria. So,
very much.
Yeah, so that it's ready to digest full milk. And babies are born with a very special fat on them that is designed specifically to top up their blood sugar level over those first few days for them to lose weight. They can lose up to sort of around 10% of their birth weight. It's absolutely normal, while they just have this very light colostrum, and then the full milk arrives. And boy, they have that really cute milk drunk look with their first feeds, which is delicious to see.
Oh, yeah, quite wonderful. I found that up in China, and I know you've been there, and I want you to be able to talk about China. I have heard, and you might be able to dispel this, I have heard that so many Chinese women are working in factory situations that they have their baby, and then very shortly afterwards, that baby is on formula, and the mother can get back to work as soon as possible, and that baby can then go to a nursery where it's taken care of, and then it's given the formula at the nursery. And I've heard that many Chinese are lactose intolerant. And so what we're also doing is we're offering them what we think is an alternative, but to them may not have the desired results. Have you heard anything like that?
Okay, interesting topic. So it's only since 2014 that China no longer has the one-child policy. So that's an interesting thing to kind of throw into the mix.
Oh, certainly
right?
is.
Yeah, and so say in New Zealand, it's pretty normal to say that you'd have 2 children and maybe a third. That's pretty common. In China, it's normal to have 1 child and maybe a second. And if we sort of, in the next 10 or 20 years, that might change and the culture of having more than 2 could become more common. So there's that aspect. You've got the fact that there's no welfare system there, so that one child, the mother, who she is going to be fiscally responsible for her parents and their retirement. And so getting a good education and working is incredibly important over there. And now that grandchild has got 6 adults who are investing in it. So it's got 4 grandparents and 2 parents. And, of course, respect of hierarchy within family is unbelievably important over there.
Confucian values.
Very, very, very much so. And I've certainly seen it with Chinese clients of mine in New Zealand. And, yeah, talk about respect to our elders on steroids. Yeah, very much so. So there's a lot of interesting stuff going on there. So, but at the same time, China is absolutely wanting to modernise. I mean, and boy, isn't it amazing?
It's certainly is. It shocked me.
They don't want to westernise. They're not interested in becoming Japan or Korea, as they see it, who've just taken on too many Western values. Of course, they're not particularly impressed at the West anyway at the moment, you know, and like neither are us sometimes, looking at the leaders of the West,
yes,
of the free world and all of that. So they know that to modernise, they have to look to the West to modernise. There's also an incredible level of distrust of their own products. So, I mean, they don't like buying their own formula for babies. They would way prefer to be buying imported formula from countries like New Zealand. We're seen as pure and green, and actually we are better than theirs. So there's huge amounts of education going on for these millennials over there, these women in their 20s and 30s who are having their babies now. But they're educating themselves and they're becoming a bit more savvy, a lot more savvy actually. I mean, they use the internet more than we do.
They do, I know that too.
Yeah, right?
Yes.
It's amazing, right? And the millennials there are use their internet for learning more than our millennials do. And we think our millennials are on their phone non-stop. Well, that ain't got nothing on the Chinese.
What are they learning?
That's right.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that, I mean, their equivalent to Facebook is bigger than Facebook. And that's mind-blowing. So they are looking to the West and they want to birth better. They want to lower their Caesar rates. They want to increase their exclusive breastfeeding rates. They want to do all these things. And I honestly, Tim, it wouldn't surprise me if in 10 years from now, 15 years from now, tops maybe, that China is actually doing it way better than the West.
Well, they most probably would introduce acupuncture into it as well. Did
Absolutely.
You see that?
Yeah, they are. And this is actually a great thing that acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine is getting incorporated slowly, but it's happening, that it's getting incorporated into modern obstetric care. And that's actually what I was in China for, just last month. And I was speaking at a modern maternity systems conference, and it is very much rolling out a program. We're teaching a program to the hospitals there of incorporating, traditional Chinese medicine and homeopathy and acupuncture. That's all in the loop with obstetric practices. But fundamentally, they have an absolute dearth of knowledge terrible lack of knowledge of natural labour and normal birth. They just don't have much of a clue. We've got midwives with their midwifery workforce. They only started teaching midwifery 10 years ago, so they don't have a workforce there of midwives who have all done 30, 40 years of midwifery careers. They don't have that. Their midwives are baby midwives, and their obstetricians haven't caught second babies for 30 or 40 years. You know, everyone's had first babies. They don't know about how quickly second babies can occur. They haven't done VBACs, vaginal birth after Caesar. It's all new. They haven't done it. But they want to learn.
I see, yes. It's very profound what's going on up there, I can assure you. I'm speaking with Kathy Fray on the birthing process of bringing babies into the world, how mothers can learn a lot more, and in particular her recent trip to China, and her website is kathyfray.com. kathyfray.com. There was a question I had, and now it's just gone, and it was quite relevant to the whole situation. You did mention something. Even though we've got a population of 1.4 billion people, there's only 17 million children born each year because of how the demographics work for this.
That's right. They have 400 million millennials. just when you come from New Zealand, it's just mind-blowing. 400 million millennials, 400 million in their 20s and 30s. So, you did ask about the lactose intolerance. I can tell you that, just going a separate subject from China, but very specifically, lactose intolerance is lactase deficiency, and it's actually very much only most babies who are lactose intolerant. It's a mild thing, it's a transient thing, and especially if they are 100% exclusively breast milk fed, this is not something that they end up generally having. But it is something that is seen more dominantly in Scandinavian ancestry. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we will see it.
You know, back in the 1980s, when we cast our view back, water births were quite a new phenomena, and there was all sorts of things going on. Is this still carried on now, or has that shifted?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I'll tell you why, because water birth, more accurately, needs to be divided into two parts, and that is water labour and water birth. And so often women would say, oh yes, I'd love to do a water birth, but actually what they're talking about is they would like to labour in the pool while their cervix is dilatating. So there's labour and there's birth, and we need to separate the two pieces of it. So labour is when you're having the contractions and your cervix is opening. Then once your cervix is fully open, that's when you start your active pushing and you're doing the birth. So specifically with regards to water labours, what generally the jury is fully on board with a decision on this. It is a unanimous decision across the board with my health professionals, be it obstetrician, paediatrician, midwife in general. Labouring in water is a good thing. Okay. So there are some fine-tunings to that. We sometimes can get a bit concerned if the waters have been ruptured for quite an extended period, because that baby potentially is no longer in that sterile bubble. So having a woman in a water for a long time with ruptured membranes, sometimes we get concerned specifically about group B strep with that. Okay, so that's one aspect. There's a fine-tune aspect that there is some pretty sound evidence that shows that when women get into the pool too early, so say before being 7 centimetres dilatated with a really fully effaced thin cervix, that can actually, if they get in sort of too early, when they've still got quite a thick cervix, that can waterlog the cervix and actually lengthen the time that it takes to dilate. So there's fine-tuning, but in general, fantastic. Now, big question, is it the right thing to stay in the pool to actually physically birth that baby underwater? And there definitely is, I have to be honest, controversy on it. And generally the obstetricians have no opinion on it because they've never done one.
I see. Okay. I wanted to cover that because I spent time, and I mentioned it in the last interview with you 10 years ago, I spent time with Igor Tchaikovsky in Moscow, where he took pregnant women down to the Black Sea in the Crimea, where they would all go down into the sea, and dolphins would come in a semicircle around them and they clicked and whistled. And the women were so taken and sort of overwhelmed by the magnitude of having dolphins as midwives that they were so relaxed because they went into a euphoric situation that their whole body relaxed enough, and the baby was just born into the water straight away and remained on the umbilical cord for 20 minutes whilst the dolphin still continued to chirp and sing, and the joy and the sheer yes, and so the babies just swam under the water, and the dolphins shared their language. And from what I've heard was that when you're born from in a terrestrial environment, you're born into the air supposedly does something to the fontanelle on the top of the baby's head, whereas if the baby's born into the water, it goes from water to water, and there's a continuity. Another subtle thing going on which opened that baby up to communicate with these dolphins, because what he told me was that these babies are very telepathic with each other to the degree that they know also when dolphins are around, even though Moscow's 1,700 k's from the Black Sea. When these people come close to the ocean, there's a connection to dolphins. And so there's another sort of interspecies communication type quality there. It
certainly it wouldn't surprise me at all that when you say that there's like a telepathic communication. And when you see an absolutely brand new baby, I mean, I'm talking minutes old. Even actually, there's something that I've witnessed as well hundreds of times. And it's like when a baby is typically kind of around about 1 to 2 hours old, but sometimes longer. It may be sometimes at 24 hours old. But it's like things glaze over, and it's like they have to go back to square one and learn from the start a little bit. I can't, it's a hard thing to describe because it's just so amazing to watch. But so often people will say that when the baby's born, it looked so old and so wise. The eyes were just, you just know that those eyes, that soul has been here before. It's unquestionable. And I just saw a photo the other day somebody put up on Instagram, and I just had to comment. I said, I know that baby's under 10 minutes old. And then mum was like, yeah, that's true. And I knew that how did I know that? I didn't know the baby. I knew it because of its eyes. So there's definitely and baby's almost been telepathic, or has probably been the whole time in utero.
Yes.
And so has the mother been. It's an amazing thing that we just are beginning to grasp. Birthing in cold water, I would say, as a midwife, even with the dolphin experience, I can feel the midwifery part of me thinking, oh my God, that baby's going to be cold stressed, and how are we going to get its core temperature back up? But getting back to the water birth, it is amazing to watch the babies arrive so gently, and how I've often, because we talk about babies needing to have a first cry at birth, because it assists to open their lungs and inhale it, and actually assists to dry their lungs, because obviously when a baby's born, it's got wet lungs, right? It's been swimming in water for 9 months.
Yes.
And we estimate there's about 100 mils per lung that needs to be dissipated pretty quickly to avoid them having respiratory distress. So what is amazing to watch is, which I've seen numerous times, is the water birth babies not crying, and they just come up and they just straight onto their mummy, and they look. And they just look around. And you're like, hold on, you need to cry, and you need to dry out those lungs. No, they don't. How they don't need to, I don't know. But it is amazing to watch. It doesn't always happen, but when it does, they just come out. It's almost like if they could purr, they would.
Yeah.
They're just lying there purring.
Yes. And most men that I've spoken to, been at the birth, they talk about a spiritual or a religious experience for them.
Yeah, I've seen some pretty tough dudes, with their eyes fully watering. Yeah, and the guys can be absolutely amazing as birth support sometimes, and sometimes they can be pretty hopeless. So if you've got a man that's saying to you that's not really sort of sounding fully engaged during the pregnancy and is not really into the antenatal classes and is not really asking any questions and is not, and especially if they need to go outside and have a ciggy every half an hour or something, I mean, if or if they say things like, oh, I'm not going to be at the bottom end, I'll feel sick if I see some blood. If you're kind of starting to feel that resistance from them that they're not feeling, just not. They're way outside their comfort zone. I think we should respect that.
You bet.
And say to them, hey, that's okay, but what you do need, girls, is you need someone who is going to be your active birth support person. So it's not that you don't want them there, but it's just that you might want another person. So, okay. So, like, have your mum or your big sister or somebody else, that particularly a woman that actually knows about normal birth, and have them in there. But it doesn't matter how engaged or not engaged they've been, or how useful or useless that they've been, those guys. Once that baby arrives, they just melt. They all melt. It's amazing.
Well, we want to see them vulnerable at that particular stage too, allow them to feel.
Yeah.
Because, blokes have that inability in many levels, and so it's just wonderful to see them experience.
It is, and I think it creates an incredible bond for them. And, I could tell endless stories on that one, but I think having the guys there, and, as they were there at the conception, so they should be there at the birth.
Very good, yes. Kathy, we've only got a short time now. Is there any wonderful little vignette or something that you can share with the listeners? Because I want all prospective mums and dads to be able to listen to this interview so that they can take away something that, yes, I'm going to be totally focused, I'm going to be dedicated to my partner to make sure that this little joy bundle.
I think that maybe what I'll do is I'll just quickly overview what I told hundreds of mums and dads over the time is what I call the 4 mountains. Okay, so there's 4 mountains that everybody has to go through in this journey: the mountain of pregnancy, the mountain of birth, the mountain of breastfeeding, and the mountain of infant sleep. And everybody is going to have a different journey, and some mountains are going to be harder for you and some are going to be easier for you. And you certainly don't want to go into it expecting that they're all going to be perfect, because I'll tell you right now, they're not going to be. So for example, I'll just kind of quickly overview for you. So the mountain of pregnancy, well, for some women, they decide that they want to get pregnant, and it happens pretty quickly, and their pregnancy is all very normal, and everything's tickety-boo, and there's no really big concerns, and that's fabulous. And for another woman, she's undergone years and years of IVF and multiple miscarriages. It's been this enormous journey for her, and then she gets gestational diabetes and preeclamptic toxemia, and the baby has a preterm birth, or maybe there's growth restrictions, concerns on the fetus, or more to the point, when she goes for a 20-week antenatal scan, they actually confirm that there is a genetical anomaly with this baby, And I've seen some pretty tough journeys that women have had to go through with their pregnancies. And so just if your pregnancy, I should say, is being absolutely wonderful and normal, just be really grateful, because not every woman has that. And then you've got the mountain of birth. And, you know, some women, golly, their waters break and they have a lovely 3-hour dilatation in their labour. And then, hey, presto, half an hour pushing, they've got their baby out and everything's fantastic. Another woman, she's got these incredible complications going on with her medically, and she's needed to be induced. Genuinely, it's absolutely the right thing in her case. And there's failed labour and failed forceps and failed ventouse and crash emergency section ending up in, this is a true story I'm particularly thinking of. And she's ending up in an intensive care unit because she's got massive post-operative infections, babies in skiboo. I mean, some women have some pretty horrific stuff that they go through. Then you've got the breastfeeding. Some women just put that baby on beautifully, latched's fantastic. Oh, breastfeeding was a breeze, didn't really have any problems at all. And then you've got another woman, maybe her baby's actually got a cleft palate and it's a big deal. Or maybe she's had a breast mastectomy, or maybe she's got inverted nipples. Like everybody can, if your breastfeeding goes beautifully, just be grateful. And then finally, when you get through it all, it's the journey of infant sleep, and man, that one can go on for years. So,
yeah.
But we all have the mountains.
Very much so. I just remembered a little mountain just then. I just remembered just now. It was in Asia, a lot of women squat to work.
Oh, you squat on pregnancy?
And no, does that allow them to have an easier birth?
Oh, absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because they're always squatting, whereas a Western woman sitting in a chair a lot of times. And the fact that we sit on a toilet. The Western world, we all sit on a toilet, so we don't get down on our haunches. And I think this is a big thing that a lot of the Asians and most other developing world countries had this ability to just squat. India, the same. Though a lot of millennials, or a lot of even hippie generation, our generation, learned also to sit cross-legged, which allowed us to squat more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, probably the main advantage with cultures where they do a lot of squatting normally is the fact that they physically can do it.
Yes.
And so definitely practicing squatting during your pregnancy, so you get used to that centre of gravity, which is different when you're pregnant from when you're not pregnant. And just get comfortable in that position and sort of stretching your Achilles tendons and everything else. It's a very good move.
Excellent. Now, we've got a little gift, Kathy. Would you like to just share with us that you've got your wonderful book here?
We have, my first book is called Oh Baby, Birth Babies and Motherhood Uncensored, and that's been New Zealand's #1 birth baby book since 2005. Everyone calls it their Bible, but what I've got here is the one that's a follow-on, the sequel, which is Oh Grow Up, Toddlers to Preteens Decoded.
Yes, and you have got a very special section right at the back of it, and it's the flowering of the human spirit.
I have, yeah.
And the other side is that you want to give this to any listener, and what we're going to be able to do is most probably around about the end of January, if you could email me, tim@ourplanet.org. I hope I don't get a huge amount of spam.
Well, what we can do, actually, I'm just thinking this off the cuff, but if they want to email you, and if you want, you can ask for one or the other or both of my free labour birth download or my free Why They Cry infant guide. And like everybody that asks for those, we can just put them in the drawer.
Oh, that's excellent.
No, is that how good?
Yeah,
okay.
that works. I was concerned I was getting so much spam. That was what I was having my little block about. So we can do this. So,
like, if you email Tim, he can send me through your details and we'll get them. I'll make sure my team get that to you guys. If you want, so it's the labour and birth guide or the Why Babies Cry guide or both, just let us know and we'll get it to you.
Excellent. Well,
and then everyone can go into the drawer for the book, and then Planet FM will sort out the winner.
Good. Green Planet FM will sort it. And next year we're going to have 7.7 billion on our planet.
Wow.
7.7 billion. So thank you, Kathy. This has been wonderful. It just makes me feel good.
Oh, it's always a pleasure, Tom. I love what you guys are doing here. It's awesome, awesome stuff.
Okay, thank you again.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Hi everybody, this is Tim again. We're just in a situation, I've been in the radio station for some time, for 8 hours, and I've just completed the edit of this interview, and there's a little bit more room that we can tack on some of the highlights of how Kathy would like to be able to share just one more little story. And Kathy's also involved in a organisation, and she's on the line at the moment. And so, Kathy, could you just tell us, or tell the listeners, what you want to share?
Well, I thought I'd just add in the point that I'm the founding director of a global summit called IMCO, which is the International Integrative Maternity Healthcare Organisation. And in September in 2019 will be the next global summit in Auckland, which is pretty exciting. So anybody interested in integrative medicine or the maternity aspect of that, would certainly love to touch base.
Good. Could you give a website to, or do I go to kathyfray.com?
Yeah, if you go to kathyfray.com, at the very bottom of the homepage is the link through to the conference. But its actual website is www.imhco.com. So, as I say, that stands for that International Integrative Maternity Health Care Organisation. So, IIMHCO.
And so the presenters are going to be coming in from a very broad understanding of how we can integrate herbalism needs as well.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, we've got some amazing speakers coming in, international speakers. We've got, for example, the world's leading homeopathic obstetrician. We've got one of, probably I would have to say, one of the two top goddesses of midwifery from the USA. We've got absolute leader in her field in China to do with modern maternity systems here, bringing in traditional Chinese medicine. And yeah, it's very, very cool. So integrative maternity healthcare is basically the maternity part of integrative medicine. So about 70% of the delegates will be midwives probably attending, and a lot of obstetricians and integrative medicine therapists and of various different modalities.
Very good, yes. We need to broaden our understanding of so many issues today, and I would like to think that we can have a large audience and just be present to these very, very unique and capable practitioners. Very good. Okay, well, look, blessings to you, and look forward to hearing wonderful results.
Thank you so much, Tim, and all the best to everybody listening as well. Love and light.
Thanking you. Bye.
Bye.
That was Kathy Fray from kathyfray.com on bringing babies into the world. Decide to network. Use every letter you write, every conversation you have, every meeting you attend, every email you send. And remember, even Facebook, to tweet and to express your fundamental beliefs and dreams. Affirm to others the vision of the world you want. Network through thought. Network through action. Network through love. Network through the spirit. You are the center of a network. You are the center of the world. You are a free, immensely powerful source of life and goodness. Affirm it, spread it, radiate it. Think day and night about it, and you will see a miracle happen. The greatness of your own life in a world of big powers, media and monopolies, but of 7.6 billion individuals, networking is the new freedom, the new democracy, a new transparency, and a new form of wholeness and happiness. This originated by Dr. Robert Muller, Chancellor of the World Peace University in Costa Rica, Central America. I invite you to be able to come to greenplanetfm.com, where we have over 400 interviews in our database, which you can readily download and listen to be able to inspire yourself to become the change you want to see in the world. and become involved in caring for your children and grandchildren's future. We are also on Facebook, on Green Planet FM and ourplanet.org. Please come and love us. This is Tim Lynch.
And or Lisa Eyre.
And Liz Gunn.
In the spirit of Aroha, wishing you a wonderful week. We look forward to being with you next week. I say, kia kaha and haere rā.